And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed. To you it shall be for food. Genesis 1:29. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. Psalm 78:25. Everyday Manna with Lisa.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. Today, we are going to make a South American chicken chili. Now this is not your traditional tomato-y based chili, but it is absolutely delicious. We're going to go with some Peruvian blue potato mixture to go underneath the chili, and then on the side we're going to make a homemade Mocha Hot Chocolate and some little pumpkin pie spiced tartlets, white chocolate tarts. So let's get started on our chili. Now in this pan I have 2 pounds of lean ground chicken. And if you can't find ground chicken, can't imagine that you can't, but you could use ground turkey. But what you want to make sure is read your package, because sometimes ground turkey has got the dark meat and the skin ground in with it, and it's a little fattier. Same thing with the chicken. So make sure that you look at the package. Now what I have is 93% lean ground chicken, and because it is so lean, I'm going to add just a little bit, probably about 2 tablespoons or so of canola oil, because I want some fat in there to help it brown, and I want to use a heart healthy fat, so I'm using canola oil. You could use olive oil if you wanted to, but canola oil or vegetable oil is just fine. Now I want to brown this chicken. I've made this with both chicken and turkey, and it's really good either way. Now we're going to add some flavorings to this while it's browning. I'm going to go ahead and do my chopping. I've got 2 medium onions here, just plain old yellow cooking onions. That should be a pantry staple in your kitchen, because onions really are used for so many different things. I like to cut the top and the bottom off and then peel that outer layer of the onion with the skin off before I chop. That's the way I chop onions. Everybody has their own little way. And I keep a garbage pan next to me so that I can just throw the peelings away. If you have a compost pile, you absolutely could, put them in your compost, although onion might make it stink a little bit. You gotta be careful with that. But anyway, we're gonna just chop it up into small minces. Our chicken's browning. Now the basis for this chicken is our chili is our chicken, and we're going to add some flavorings to it that you may not be familiar with in chili. South American food is delicious, and they use a lot of allspice. Anytime you get into the islands like Jamaica and Aruba on down into South America, Chile and Argentina and all that, you will find a lot of allspice in your flavorings. Now allspice is not a combination of many different spices, despite its name. It is a berry called allspice. It's a singular spice. Because this is very lean, you want to watch it, make sure that it does not burn. Although I did add a little oil, I didn't add a whole bunch, so make sure that your chicken doesn't burn. I'm going to set these to the side for just a second. That's why I work on a great big cutting board, so I have room. I get asked, I guess probably more than any other question I get about my kitchen, not about necessarily cooking, but about the kitchen set here, is about this board. This board is probably 8 or 9 years old. It's the end grain, just oak board. It's, I guess, about probably 2 inches. Let me just measure it here. Let's see. About 2.5 inches deep, or thick. I love it. if you take care of your board, it will last you a lifetime. Never, ever, ever put your cutting boards in a dishwasher, never. And always make sure that you scrub it with soap and water, and then once in a while mix like a tablespoon of bleach with a cup of water and spray on there to disinfect it. And then ever so often, maybe 3-4 times a year, take a food grade mineral oil and go over your board, and it'll last forever. Now, we do want to add some heat. Now, these at the store happen to be particularly huge jalapeno peppers. So if they're smaller than this one, I would probably do 3. But this one is big. My hands are not particularly sensitive to the volatile oils. If you have never worked with fresh hot chilies, or you have extremely sensitive skin, make sure you wear gloves, little kitchen gloves, because it will burn your hands. And whatever you do, do not touch your eyes until you wash your hands. Most of the heat in a pepper is contained in the ribs and the seeds, which let me show you what I'm talking about. That's this part right here. That's where most of the heat is in a chili. So if you want to reduce it a little bit, you know, take those out. I'm going to leave them in 1/2 of a chili because this chili is huge. And then we're going to mince these. So I'm going to leave the seeds and the membrane in 1/2. And I'm going to mince these very, very fine. If you have a food processor out, you could also just zap these up in the food processor and make them really fine. But I don't mind the little chunks of jalapeno. I like jalapeno. It adds a little heat, but it also has a flavor to it. It adds some, almost a florally flavor. And I don't think roses, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just an undertone that you just can't beat it. If you don't have fresh jalapenos, you could substitute probably some cayenne pepper. You could, of course it would change the color of it, but you could add chipotle in adobo. If you've ever seen that in the store, what chipotle peppers are dried smoked jalapenos. And you could add those. Of course it would tint this a little more rosy colored, but that's okay. That would be delicious in here actually. You could, use the chipotles. And then I like to take my big knife and just kind of chop them up a little bit finer than I do with my little paring knife. These are 2 knives in my kitchen that I just simply can't cook without. And that is the little small paring knife and a chef's knife. If you've got those 2 knives, you can cut anything. The next essential knife I think would be probably a bread knife, a serrated bread knife. If you're just starting out, those are 3 knives that you need. But back to my cutting board. I got off track, didn't I? I bought this years ago at a kitchen supply store. So you can find these really anywhere. Bed Bath & Beyond has some. Any well-stocked kitchen, Walmart, Target, they have all kinds of cutting boards. I like wooden cutting boards. Now, that being said, I never put raw meat on my boards. Now, I've been reading some studies that say you can do that if you disinfect it. I don't feel comfortable doing that. So I never ever put raw meat on my wooden ones. I have little plastic ones that I can put in the dishwasher for my meat products. I'm going to take a quick break. All I'm going to do is brown up this chicken. And when I come back, we're going to add in our flavorings, our spices, our garlic, and get this simmering, and then we will start on our potatoes. I'll be back in just a minute. Hi, and welcome back. Now our chicken has gotten completely cooked through. Now what that means is there's no pink. It's all white now. And as always, and yes, I did move that to another eye, in case those of you that noticed, was up here, now it's back there, because I think that eye cooks a little better. We're going to add our flavorings before we add any liquid, and here's our allspice. It's a pretty potent spice, so you don't need much. And then some cumin, ground cumin, which, you know, is common in most chilies. A little salt and a little pepper. And I'm going to stir that in. And the reason that I do that first, if you don't know, is anytime you're cooking, you need to add the spices first, because most spices are what they call oil soluble as opposed to water soluble. So if you put it in something that's got some fat in it, it brings out the flavors more. It's called blooming, and it really does make a difference. Just let it go for just a few seconds. Then we're going to add in our onion that we chopped. So far, pretty standard flavorings. And our jalapenos, and that is a lot of jalapenos. If you don't like heat, you might want to just use one. It's up to you, 1 to 3, however hot you like your food. Anybody that watches this show knows I like spicy food. So I tend to go a little heavy on it, but if you don't, just dial it back and add as much or as little as you want to. It's a great thing about cooking at home. You can customize it to what you want it to be. Then I'm going to add some garlic, and I'm going to just run it through my garlic press. I try to show you different ways of doing things. If my hands will be strong enough here, you can just push it through a garlic press, and you see how it just comes out perfectly minced. You can mince it with the cutting on your cutting board. You can even grate it on a microplane grater. I do it many different ways, but I do like the little garlic press. Does a quick, easy job of it. There you go. 2 cloves of garlic is enough. Stir it in. And then we're ready to add the rest of our ingredients, our liquid ingredients. Now, let's talk about this first. One of the staple foods of South American and Central to South American, Mexican on down is corn. So what I'm using is hominy, which is corn that has been soaked in like a lye, or old time people did it in a lye solution, which removes that outer husk and causes it to puff up. And I just got 2 different kinds. It's just canned. I got white and golden because I think it looks pretty, and I just drained it. So that's hominy. It's got a very mild flavor. I love it. Stir that in. Oh, I wish you could smell this, how delicious this really smells. Then we're going to add some milk, about a cup. Yes, you heard me right, milk. Adds a richness to it. And some chicken broth, about a cup and a half of chicken broth. This is not a soup, this is a chili, so it's going to be nice and thick. Stir that in. Then we're going to add about half a cup. Now, traditionally, this would have a cheese called jotica, but that can be kind of hard to find. It's a Mexican grating cheese. Think Parmesan Reggiana, Parmesan cheese. Well, I'm using Romano, which has that same sharp bite to it. But if you can find jotica cheese, by all means, please use that. About half a cup. But if you can't, do what I do and just use Romano or Parmesan. It's got that same nuttiness to it. And I know it sounds odd. People think that cheese or Parmesan cheese or Romano cheese and chili, but trust me when I say it's very, 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 very good. Another ingredient that is kind of different in chilies are peanuts. Just plain roasted peanuts. I like the dry roasted ones for this. I am going to just run my knife over them just a dot, just to kind of chop them up just a little bit, about 2 cups. Delicious in it. I'm telling you, it is delicious in this particular dish. Peanuts are used a lot in island cooking. When I say island, I mean like the Caribbean, the different Jamaican, Aruba, those kinds of things, because it just adds this texture and flavor to the food, and it's really very, very good. I have a pot of water here on the stove, and we are going to cook. I like to serve this over potatoes. So we're going to cook some little potatoes. Let me stir this in. All I'm going to do is stir this in, put it on about medium heat. And you want to let this simmer for about 25 or 30 minutes. You could completely do this in your crock pot. Brown the chicken, cook it to where it's no longer pink. Then put everything in a crock pot, put it on low, and it would be delicious. And that's it. All that needs to do is just simmer together. And then we'll finish it with a little parsley. Now, I like to use for this dish these particular little potatoes. These are called blue Peruvian potatoes. And let me just cut one in half and I'll show you what I mean. See the inside? It really is a purpley bluish color. And I love them. They are a low starch potato. But what I've got here today is just a mixture, the little creamer potatoes of the red, the Yukon Gold, and the blue Peruvian. And I've scrubbed them. I'm gonna leave them whole because they're small. And I'm just going to cook them until they're tender. They will take about around 20 minutes. Once that comes up to a boil, I'll add some salt. I don't like to add the salt until it comes up to a simmer or a boil, because the salt will go straight to the bottom of your pot and it really damages the bottoms of your pot. So I never add the salt until it comes up to heat. I'm just going to take a quick break, clean this up, let this simmer. And when I come back, we're going to make a homemade hot chocolate mix, and then for dessert, we're going to make a little tart. I'll be back in just a minute. All right, now our chicken chili is just simmering away. Our potatoes are simmering away. We are going to make a homemade Mocha Hot Chocolate mix. So instead of having the packets that you open, we're going to make our own. And we're going to start with some dry milk, about a cup of sugar. Oh, there's my timer to tell me my potatoes should be about done. We're going to add some cocoa powder, and we're going to add some instant espresso and just a pinch of salt. We're going to stir that with a whisk together. We're just going to stir all this together, and this you can keep like in a quart jar or in some kind of a sealed container. And then I'll show you how to make it. You need to bring some water up to a boil. You hear my Elijah in the background back there. I bet your house has children's sounds too. Sweet. And then some chocolate chips. Now I use dark chocolate because it's healthier. And it really is healthier. And that's all there is to the mix part. Now, this is one of those things that you could completely make this ahead and store it. Let me just get a little bit of a spoon here. I'm going to stir that together instead of the whisk. Make sure I get it all combined. You can store it. Just make sure that before you use it, you kind of stir it up, because those chocolate chips will sort of settle to the bottom. Then when you want to make a cup of hot chocolate, take 1/3 of a cup of this mixture, put down in the bottom of a mug, and then just store the rest. My water's coming up to a boil, so we'll be just a minute on that. Now, let's get our little tarts made while my water is coming to a boil. Now, we're going to make a pumpkin spice white chocolate tart. Let me get these in the sink here. Hold on just a moment. Now, for this, I have some milk. And I have 1 package of white chocolate instant pudding mix. And I'm just going to put that in the milk, and then I'm going to add some pumpkin pie spice to it. And I'm going to just mix this with my little mixer for just a minute, just to kind of get that going. I love the little instant pudding mixes because you can really just flavor them up any way you want. This is one of my boys' favorite little desserts to have, is just this very pumpkin pie spiced pudding tarts, which is what we're doing here. You just want to go until you get that all the way incorporated, and this needs to sit for just a minute to kind of thicken up. Now, what I like to use, in the store you can buy these little mini tart shells, the little mini graham crackers. 6 come in a package, and I like to use those. And then what I do is let this firm up for just a minute. Just takes it a second. The instant pudding does. Just takes a minute. We're going to fill this up. Our water's coming up to a boil. Let's check our potatoes because I think they're done. Yeah. When you can insert a knife or a fork or something in and you don't meet resistance, that means they're done. Now, the way I like to serve this is take a couple of your potatoes. Make sure you get, if you're using the variety like I am, turn your eye off. And I like to cut them in half because I like to go ahead and, get them ready to eat and bite-sized. You could put these on the side if you wanted. See the little purple potatoes? They stay purple. And it adds a beautiful color contrast to the chili. So I cut mine up, and then I take the chili. It's done. And I spoon it over top of the potatoes. Get some of the liquid too. And then if you want to add some color to it, just add a little bit of parsley, just some chopped up parsley. And you've got a warm, comforting meal ready to go. Just waiting on my water. I don't have a tea kettle here, so I just have my water in a saucepan. And then just add a little bit, this will add a little color, but it also adds just a little bit of freshness, that fresh herb flavor. Traditionally, it would be cilantro, but honestly, I don't like cilantro, so I use parsley, but it is very much used in, South American, Mexican cooking. But for me, I'm not a fan of cilantro, so I just use parsley. Now, see how that thickened up? We want to just fill up your little tart shells. You can buy little shortbread tarts. You could make this as one big pie if you wanted to, but I just like the little individual servings. I think it looks cute. My 2 boys love these things. They just get real excited when I make them. And then, just because I want to, top them off with some whipped cream. And then I like to add, for a textural difference, just some chopped pecans. Just adds something to it. Just adds flavor and crunch, and I absolutely love pecans, so I add mine. You could use walnuts, you could use almonds, or just not. You could just leave them, plain if you wanted to. You could dust a little cinnamon over it, or even just a dusting more of the pumpkin pie spice. But there's just some quick, easy little dessert tarts for you. Now, my water is up to a boil. Let me get my little small whisk. I love these little things. They're perfect for this. I put 1/3 of a cup in there. Now, let me get a ladle. If you have a teapot, it's even better. Fill it with water. You could use milk. If you wanted to use warmed milk, you could. But trust me, this is very, very rich. So you've got powdered milk in there. it is really rich. But it's so good because that water will melt those chocolate chips, the hot water, the boiling water, will melt the chocolate chips, dissolve the coffee. And I don't know if you know this or not, but a little bit of coffee, instant coffee granules makes chocolate taste chocolatier. That's a word. It does. It makes the chocolate taste even better. I'm sure there's some big scientific explanation as to why that is. I just don't know it. So just dissolve that with your little whisk and then add some whipped cream on top if you like, and I do. And that'll just melt down in that hot. And you've got a wonderful, warm, comforting meal. We've got our South American chicken chili with our potatoes, our blue Peruvian mix. We've got our wonderful little white chocolate pumpkin pie spiced tarts and our homemade Mocha Hot Chocolate. Thank you for joining with me. Try these recipes and let me know what you think, and I will see you next time on Everyday Manna.
Thank you for watching Everyday Manna with Lisa. This program is made possible by viewers like you. Your support is continually needed to keep Christian programming on the air. Please send your best financial gift to Living Faith Television in care of Everyday Manna, P.O. Box 1867, Abingdon, Virginia 24212.